Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Steelers insider rips Kenny Pickett, ESPN reports Russell Wilson not promised QB job. The Pittsburgh Steelers are moving on from the debacle they had at quarterback for most of the 2023 season. But there will likely be rumblings about how the team went from Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Mitch Trubisky to Russell Wilson, Justin Fields and Kyle Allen for quite some time. In his latest online chat, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Jerry Dulac received quite a few new questions about the Steelers' quarterback situation. When addressing Pickett, the Steelers insider didn't have many complimentary words. He wanted out. Not a good decision, not a good attitude, Dulac wrote. Did it to himself? Dumb. To another question about Steelers general manager Omar Khan being potentially dishonest about Pickett, Dulac responded, "You shouldn't always expect an honest answer." He also added, "And it's not their job to keep a quarterback who is 14-10 happy. It is his job to be a professional." ESPN's Brooke Pryor didn't put Pickett on blast as Dulac did. But her reporting for the Steelers' quarterback transactions this offseason didn't exactly paint Pickett in a positive light. Wilson didn't ask for assurances about a starting job, according to a source familiar with the conversations, and the Steelers didn't give any, wrote Pryor. But Pryor described that due to the fanfare of Wilson's late-night announcement that he was joining the Steelers, Pickett believed the Steelers were going back on their initial plan to give him the first-team reps, so he opted for an opportunity elsewhere. That elsewhere will be with the Philadelphia Eagles. During his postseason press conference on January 18, head coach Mike Tomlin stressed that the Steelers would bring in competition for Pickett. It wasn't coach speak. He meant it. Pryor reported that the Steelers considered other outside options besides Wilson in Ryan Tannehill and Kirk Cousins. But the team zeroed in on Wilson after he became available for a cheap price. Furthermore, Pryor reported that while the Steelers went quarterback shopping, Pickett remained Plan A. When the team signed Wilson, the organization viewed it not as a sign that Pickett was heading to the bench but rather as a big positive for Pickett. The Steelers believed, one team source said, that adding Wilson would have been a benefit to Kenny, and the pursuit of Wilson would kick Kenny into gear and reignite the competitive fire that had made Pickett so attractive to Pittsburgh in the draft evaluation process, wrote Pryor. Instead, it did the opposite. Dulac reported that Pickett canceled a workout with teammates the day after Wilson agreed to his Steelers contract. By the end of the week, Pickett was on his way to Philadelphia. While Pryor's report conveys Pickett didn't want to compete with Wilson for the starting job, it didn't free the Steelers of all wrongdoing. According to Pryor, multiple sources in the Steelers organization acknowledged that Pickett was placed in poor situations during his 2 seasons with the team. A flawed offense that sparked the 2023 midseason firing of coordinator Matt Canada was part of the picture, as was a shaky offensive line and an inconsistent group of skill players around Pickett, wrote Pryor. The team, though, was trying to take steps this offseason to right those mistakes. They hired Arthur Smith as offensive coordinator to commit to the run game and a balanced offense for Pickett. But the Steelers will never see what the young quarterback could have done in Smith's offense. Steelers urged to pursue rivals' reliable big slot receiver. The Pittsburgh Steelers were linked to Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver Tyler Boyd during the first week of NFL free agency. But a deal has yet to come to fruition. Pro Football Focus Brad Spielberger, though, hasn't given up on the possibility of Boyd returning home to Pittsburgh. On March 28, Spielberger named the Steelers the best landing spot for Boyd in free agency. Boyd is a big slot receiver with solid blocking chops in the run game, Spielberger wrote. He rarely ever drops a target and does well to sit in soft spots of zones on key passing downs. However, Boyd posted several career-low marks in 2023, and with so many big financial decisions facing Cincinnati, the Bengals may not be willing to offer him as much as other teams looking to upgrade their unit over the middle. Boyd, who is from Clairton, Pennsylvania, may have recorded a few career lows in 2023. But he still had 67 catches for 667 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. He has reached at least 650 receiving yards in each of the past 6 seasons. George Pickens is the only wideout currently on the Pittsburgh 2024 roster who had more than 209 receiving yards during 2023. In 8 NFL seasons, Boyd has posted 513 receptions for 6,000 receiving yards and 31 touchdowns. Boyd appears to be a natural fit for the Steelers because of his receiving production and blocking prowess. From a production standpoint, Boyd could replace Deontay Johnson, but from a stylistic perspective, he is an upgrade over the team's 2023 slot receiver Allen Robinson. The Steelers released Robinson while they traded Johnson for cornerback Dante Jackson. Making Boyd an even better fit, he attended high school about 30 minutes from Acrisure Stadium. Regardless of scheme and the potential homecoming, the Steelers just simply need another proven receiver on their roster. The only wideout and sign that Pro Football Focus ranked among the top 100 free agents this offseason is Odell Beckham Jr. The Steelers have signed veteran receivers Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins this offseason. But those two wideouts combined for just 351 receiving yards last season. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Ray Fittipaldo argued on 93.7 The Fan that there might not be room on the Steelers' final roster for both Jefferson and Watkins. Boyd may be a perfect fit for the Steelers. He may also want to play for his hometown team. But money appears to be an issue. I think the Steelers view any of these current wide receiver free agents as number threes. I just don't think they want to pay $8 to $9 million a year for a guy who's going to be a number 3, Fittipaldo said on 93.7 The Fan. The Athletic's Mark Kaboly and Steelers Now's Nick Farabaugh confirmed that report. The Steelers have not been willing to bump up their offer to free agent wideout Tyler Boyd, making that signing a long shot, Kaboly wrote. That leaves the draft as the primary avenue to replace Johnson and find a legitimate threat next to Pickens. Receiver is an urgent need for the Steelers. However, with the mad rush to start NFL free agency complete, the Steelers can afford to be a little patient. More than likely, they will wait for the NFL draft to grab a starting receiver and then reassess their potential need at the position. NFL Draft 2024, Steelers bargain defensive line targets. With the NFL Draft less than a month away, our examination of potential mid- and late-round prospects the Steelers could target continues on. Previously we've looked at offensive tackles, the interior offensive line, and wide receivers. Today we're turning our attention to the defensive side of the ball. It's never a bad idea to keep adding to your defensive line. The trenches are arguably the most influential position group on the field, and teams should always be looking for upgrades and fresh legs to add. The defensive line is also a sneaky need for the Steelers that I don't think is talked about enough. Cam Hayward is signed through 2025, but he turns 35 in May. He fought through injuries in 2023 and is likely considering how much longer his body can keep playing. Larry Ogunjobi is signed through 2025, but there is a potential out on his contract following this season. Keanu Benton has looked promising and is on his rookie contract. Behind those three are a rotation of role players on short-term contracts. If I was in the Steelers' war room, I wouldn't want to leave Detroit without drafting at least one or more guys to develop for the future. So who could some of those names be? Let's dive into some of the top mid-range defensive line prospects the Steelers could be considering in 2024. If you've been following this series, by now you know that freak athletes are something that I prioritize and that the Steelers have coveted. Maason Smith more than fits that bill, even making an appearance on Bruce Feldman's annual Freaks list in 2023. Smith was ranked 17 on Feldman's list, one spot ahead of Texas defensive tackle Byron Murphy II, who was being mocked in the late first round in several mock drafts. Smith was a highly coveted prospect coming out of high school. A five-star recruit, Smith was ranked Louisiana's top prospect in the 2021 class, ahead of a trio of receivers that you've undoubtedly heard a ton about during this draft cycle: Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Nabers, and Keon Coleman. Smith's college career started off just as promisingly, making the All-SEC freshman team with 4 sacks and 5 tackles for loss in 7 games. And you, fan, what do you think of the situation of Maason Smith? Leave your opinion in the comments.